Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery and welcome back to my One Piece journey. I have read a bunch more One Piece and today we're going to be talking about the Impel Down arc, chapters 525 to 549. Man, this arc, people have been telling me how good this entire saga I'm reading is going to be. I don't actually recall the name of the saga from sort of after Sabaody onwards throughout this massive war that is taking place, and my goodness, I am really seeing why it's so highly recommended and highly loved in the fan base. Impel Down for me had so many hype moments, hype character returns, hype panels, hype lore drops, and I hate to use this incredibly overused word of hype, but my god, did Oda provide this for me. He really balanced all the things that make One Piece great, and honestly I wasn't expecting this arc to be as comedic and as just as fun as it was. The whole vibe of Impel Down and this whole rush to save Ace from being executed has a very dark tone about it. I wasn't really expecting to be laughing and giggling and just having a massive smile on my face reading this entire thing. I've been so tied down with work and real life responsibilities, it's been really hard to get the time to read One Piece, but the moment I started Impel Down, it demanded my attention. It held me down and made me read this entire thing because I could not stop once the ball was rolling. And once I saw Buggy and Bon Clay and Crocodile and Mr. 3, Mr. 1, Daz Bones, everyone was showing up. I was just like, I am not going to stop until I finish this. And I finished this past weekend, had no time to film, but I'm so excited to talk to you about it now. Let's get started. So the way this arc begins is kind of wrapping up the sort of lore, extra world building stuff we were getting at the end of Amazon Lily. It was really cool to see that Portgas is actually Luffy and Ace's mother's name, who we've got no information about and seemingly know zero about, and it's very interesting to see how Ace has a distaste for his father, and Garp sort of alludes to that there's more reasons to that. Of course there is, classic mysterious father trope, but you know, it's working, and I'm very curious to see what Dragon's doing, why he's doing it, why there's this mysterious aura about Luffy and Ace's family. It just feels like so many Chosen One tropes are being hinted at here, but I hope Oda experiments with this in an interesting way and we get some interesting twists along the story in regards to their family. I'm like, you know when you want an author to impress you at certain things in the story? Some things I'm like, yeah, go through the motions, Oda. Just give me your classic One Piece. I'm very satisfied. I hope we get some creativity and twists and turns that I'm not ready for with Luffy's lineage. From here, we see that Buggy has been locked up in Impel Down, as he should be. Just an absolute menace of the seas, Buggy was. It was so cool to see his crew again with bloody hot Alvida, who I totally erased from my One Piece memory. I was like, oh my god, Alvida. It's so enjoyable seeing these callbacks to chapter 1, chapter 2, I don't know if Buggy and Alvida were that early, but it feels like it, at least in the anime. Isn't Alvida episode 1? Insane to see them again. And very in tone that they freak the hell out and can't be bothered saving him. Say goodbye, Buggy, you did well while you could. Too dangerous for us, we're out. Very funny moment. I really enjoyed, as always, the design of this new section of the world, One Piece, Impel Down. I love the level system. I love that the transponder snails are now also video CCTV footage snails. Very cool. It was just a joy to see what is the next level down? How much can they torture these poor prisoners? And what interesting characters are lying in each slice of this prison cake, if you will. Very fun and very exciting to see what was around the next corner as we explored Impel Down. In going into a new arc, going to a new island, so to speak, we are bound to meet really interesting, bombastic, One Piece characters. And here I am expecting like the darkest, most terrible, like celestial dragon-esque characters to show up. And then we get into Warden Magellan, who has diarrhea 10 hours of the day, I believe. And this is worked into the story as a proper plot point. Like, he will have to leave fights and leave investigations because he must be in the bathroom for 10 hours a day because he has like the poison fruit. Perfectly in tone with this series. Absolute chef's kiss moment. It was sad to kind of see the separation of Boa and Luffy in the story. I understand we need to make room for the next part in the One Piece saga, but I hope we see Boa again. Really sweet comedic moments between her and Luffy, where Luffy gives the thumbs up to say thank you for sneaking me in, and she's like, oh my god, he says I love you. She's just so cute and so sweet to see her interaction and her love and infatuation with Luffy. The Luffy and Buggy reintroduction or reunion, that's the word I'm thinking of. Luffy and Buggy reuniting was so freaking funny. Like, it was in the middle of Buggy getting chased by all these monsters. I love how Oda incorporates his chop fruit into his shocked expressions, his body parts going everywhere. Just how Luffy was kind of happy to see an old adversary, and he was so sweet. He was so cheerful and nice to Buggy throughout this entire thing. And Buggy, as hard as he might, tries to be immune to Luffy's charm, but he even falls for it multiple times throughout this arc, which was so great. It was just such fun to read that. I like that we get meaning to this new band that Luffy had on his arm all the way back in Thriller Bark, and we find out that it's Captain John's treasure marker and Buggy's interested in it. All these little details that you're like, oh yeah, I'll save that in my brain for later, and you forget about it totally. And right as you've forgotten about it, Oda slips it back real casually just into the story, and you're like, wow, Captain John didn't we get like a tidbit about him in Thriller Bark? And it tickles something in your mind, and you don't necessarily need to go on the wiki, you don't need to go through your notes. Like, I obviously take notes for these because they're videos, but it just kind of registers in your mind, like, this is a real world, this exists beyond me, beyond this page. There are events that have taken place before and will take place after, and I buy that I'm here. And, you know, earlier on in One Piece, that didn't necessarily click for me, but I know now when I inevitably reread this story, all the groundwork will be there, and I'm sure reading from chapter 1, completely different experience. And like I've said before, it really clicks to me why viewers like yourselves who have read the series would enjoy watching these too. Had I read like Little Garden and Alabasta and all of that, knowing how like amazing Mr. 2 and Crocodile, Mr. 3, the introduction of Robin, knowing where all of that goes, reading that again from scratch, it would just be an incredible experience. So yeah, I get it, and that I'm tempted for the reread again, and I'm just like halfway through. I'm halfway through. Insane. The way Oda introduced Mr. 3, how he introduced Bon Clay, how he introduced Crocodile, getting more proper information on Jimbei or Jimbei. I'll talk about him more in a little bit. He just did it in such satisfying ways. I don't know whether to call it fan service because they all played a massive part in this arc, but they gave me, as a fan, those hype chills moments where I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe this familiar face is back in the story. And it was just kind of like, look, you're my villain, but I'm gonna work with you because we have this mutual interest. I love that trope in stories, and to see it done in One Piece where the villains are so damn out of this world, like Bon Clay. Can you imagine Bon Clay in any other story? Probably not, right? So to have these incredible characters to play with this trope with, it just makes for an unforgettable experience. It's just so great. It's just so much fun. You know, one thing that has been not a complete negative for me, but sometimes a drawback with One Piece. Sometimes there are some battles where I know, like, look, we're just going through the motions. These are like the low level characters. We've got to get through them to get to the big stuff. What I loved about this arc was Oda skips them pretty much. It was just like, whoa, giant demon, fox, weird animal thing, and then it would just cut to little tiny Luffy, so you know he's used gear 3, and it's like Comedic effect, check. Epic battle, done, without me having to see it, because I just know it's just, we got to get through this person to get to the next room. It just does it more efficiently, gives me a laugh, and I appreciated it because I didn't want to get bogged down in the fights. The story now is getting so urgent and interesting, I just want to get to the meat, and that's what Oda did in this arc. So immediately looking at Jimbei and his dialogue with Ace, I really grew a fondness for this character. I don't know him well enough yet to say I love him, but you know, I have a sense that he's a deeply good guy. You know, just the way he spoke to Ace. I wrote down a bit of the quote here. He says, "My heart hurts, Ace, because I'm not able to do what's right." And he's talking about Whitebeard and how he brought peace to Fishman Island. And you can see he's got all these regrets in regards to Arlong. And thank you to those of you who told me that Jimbei was mentioned all the way back in Arlong Park. And we see him wanting to apologize to Luffy about what happened there. So he's had so much to do with the story. Let me check this again in my notes. Yeah, I also read Ace and Jimbei once almost killed each other. So they're having this banter, and I feel like we're gonna get a lot of blanks of the past filled in through the lens of Jimbei's flashbacks, potentially. Like, he seems to have strong relationships with some of the bigger, larger than life characters that have been part of the background overall plot. And I really hope we get to dive into that through his eyes, because he seems like such a genuine, powerful, interesting guy. Quick little moment before we move on. I liked this moment where it cut to Garp and he's just having a massive laugh about how much of a racket his grandchildren are making. You know, they could never make it into the Navy, but this family of Luffy's and Aces, Garps and Dragons, they are a massive riot. And I think no matter which side of history you stand on, they're gonna just enjoy the headstrong nature of their family members. Really cool to see that. As Boa exits Impel Down, she kind of gives Ace the cheeky wink to say, "Look, your brother's here, I helped him in." And we fully get reintroduced to Bon Clay, who, spoiler alert, is one of my favorite characters in the entire series as of Impel Down. I never thought I'd be saying that, but I want him in the Straw Hat crew so badly after this arc, if he's still alive by what happened at the end here. I think he is alive, just knowing how Oda writes. But my god, what an impeccable character. We'll cover that as we continue. The absolute goat of this arc. The hug between Luffy and Bon Clay as they reunited after, when was the last time they saw each other? Didn't he help them escape from Alabasta ages ago? Just seeing them fight and be hug and be reunited as friends was so freaking sweet. And this is where we get introduced to Bon Clay's goal, which is looking for the ultimate queen of queen, the ultimate drag queen, Eva. My god, I didn't expect like a massive drag queen arc or war dump in One Piece, but I'm all here for it. It was so good. In this whole portion of Impel Down, we get so many Avengers-esque fights with Mr. 3, Buggy, Bon Clay, and Luffy, and the way they combine their attacks and powers was just incredibly exciting to read. And I really want to commend Oda as an artist here. For some reason, the way he draws like elements, fire, water, steam, when Luffy's in Gear 2, clouds even, I find it so beautiful and so satisfying to take in. And with all of those characters, especially with Mr. 3 and his wax, Luffy going into Gear 2, and Magellan with all of his poison, it was an absolute treat for my eyes and really made the fight so much better than they had been before because of all these elements that add movement to the panels. Some panels, you know, when you're looking at them in black and white, can be so full and packed with info that you kind of got to reprocess and take a second to analyze what you're actually looking at. Didn't really have this problem in Impel Down. It flowed super smoothly to me. One, it's to do with all the elemental aspects at play, and two, Oda's clearly improving as an artist as the story continues. Again, my notes are so disjointed because it's like a play-by-play of my reactions here. I saw that Shanks is off fighting Kaido, one of the 4 emperors, It's just something to keep in the back of my mind as I continue. I'm keen to see how that's going to play into things. Daz Bones, Mr. One, gets reintroduced. He comes into it a little bit. And a funny moment of when we got the map of Bon Clay's hazy memory of level 4. Just a few little tidbits I wanted to let you know that I enjoyed, but there's not much to elaborate on there. One of the big, shocking, impactful moments of this arc is when Luffy gets absolutely destroyed by Magellan and his Venom fruit, and how he creates this dragon and he travels through it and gets spat out on the other side. Incredible fight, and the panels of Luffy covered in the poison were like horror manga stuff. Oda's really proven himself that he can create a disturbing image in One Piece. Say what you will about the tone of the story, but these images are truly horrifying, especially on somebody that's so lovely and as endearing as Luffy. And this is where Bon Clay steps up as a true S-tier, incredible friend that you'd want in your corner no matter what. Like, honestly, some of these Bon Clay moments in this are up there with nothing happened. I know that's a massive call. I know it is, but just really break down all the moments Bon Clay had in defending Luffy and all the risks he had to take. He didn't have to do all this. He didn't have to. He impersonates so many people with his fruit to allow them to get in and out of situations. He impersonated freaking Nami, and Oda got me in this moment. I'm like, no way is Nami just showing up in Impel Down right now. So the fact, maybe I'm just stupid, that's a very high possibility, but the fact that he can create doubt for me, the reader, just shows how incredibly overpowered and versatile Bon Clay's Devil Fruit is. Regardless, okay, let's talk about him a little bit. So Bon Clay imitates the Pharaoh second in charge command guy, is doing everything he can to save Luffy here. Seeing the desperation in his face, he's crying, he's screaming, the desperation he has for Luffy to survive. The gratitude that Luffy shows to Bon Clay was absolutely touching to read. And we have this mad rush to get him to Eva, the man who can perform miracles. Luffy has an incredible moment of HAKI as Bon Clay is in danger, and he knocks out all of these wolves. And it's still mind-blowing to me that Luffy can do anything of this nature in this story. It still feels like it completely amazes me that a character like Luffy can do this, and we haven't really understood why the hell that's the case. I'm just so curious about HAKI, and it gets mentioned later by Blackbeard and confirms JAYA HAKI. Oh god, okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. Oh my god. So we meet Eva, the miracle worker, the ultimate drag queen, who ate the Horm fruit and can manipulate hormones. What an amazing character, and what an amazing power. A bit precarious that he's straight up just flipping the genders of people willy-nilly. It's like, this could change the entire game of the entire series. And it was very cool to see in the SBS question corner, Oda drew all the Straw Hats as different genders. And it just kind of made me wonder, are we going to get any moments like this with key characters due to Iva in the story? Not too sure. So Bon Clay is saved by Iva thanks to Luffy begging, and Luffy's in his Frankenstein save at all costs room, being basically tortured by this hormone transformation that Iva has put in place for him. I found it so touching that, with the exhaustion, all the things that Bon Clay's been going through, he stood out there outside that door cheering for Straw Boy to get better for hours, over and over, as Luffy screamed in pain. He screamed outside, "You can do it, you can make it, come on, you need to survive." And look, some people call it cheesy, some people think that's lame, or exaggerated, or over the top. I don't care. I love it. It touches me, and it just, it makes you believe in real friendship. And I know he says this at some point, but he said to Luffy, I don't know whether it was here or earlier on when they met, he was just saying friends, it doesn't matter how long you've known each other. It just matters how you are, how you care for them, or something along those lines. And he just is that to a T. The way he supported him through all of this on the brink of death, it was touching to read, and I loved it. The reveal of evil monster Luffy coming out being like, food, I need food, after being cured of this poison, and the way he just devoured. he came out like a freaking monster after eating all the food at this massive party. Was so so funny. Interesting how Eva, whatever says, like, only took him 20 hours. That's more than a miracle. And for him to say that, I'm like, what's the deal with Luffy? What's the deal with this guy? I don't know. And then we get the double bombshell that Eva was part of Dragon's crew. And then Eva gets the bombshell that, holy crap, Luffy is Dragon's son. Luffy always used to look to the east. That's why he's from the East Blue. Just beautiful tidbits that I love to read. And then Eva's like, that would explain Luffy's superhuman vitality. What the heck does that mean, dude? What? Okay, Oda, you drip feeding me again, but can you just freaking get Dragon, Ace, Shanks, why not? He's a friend of the family. Garp, get them all in one room and let's just have a big family therapy session plus 23andMe, Ancestry.com. Can we please just sort this out? Because I need to know now. Following on from all of this great storytelling is the mad prison escape portion of Impel Down, which was nothing but perfection to read. It had all the bad guys, all the good guys were all together. We're gonna use our cool powers, and Oda must have had so much freaking fun drawing these panels, because they are just, all of these guys are just full of so much freaking swag, and they are just doing the coolest moves. Like the way Crocodile was just turning things to sand and entering rooms, and his smug face with his cigar and every, like, yeah, I'm tempted to do it, but I'm not gonna get this freeze frame on the channel. But Crocodile's like forever just uncomfortable face, like slash disinterested face with his cigar, never got old to look at on each page, and he's just destroying everyone. Buggy's freeing half the prison with cowardly Mr. 3. Buggy really reminded me of like cowardly Usopp, like getting all his followers, taking credit for things that really he didn't do, but loving the attention mixed with self-loathing. But Buggy kind of feels like a Usopp gone bad guy vibe. I wonder if that's intentional. I wonder if that's something that's commonly thought of in the fan base, because it really stood out. That motif kind of stood out to me quite a few times reading Impel Down. Very cool to see. I wrote here, Ivankov knows Crocodile's weakness and says he knew him since he was starting out. And yeah, there's just a lot here. There's a lot here to unpack, and it's so hard to articulate in a video. It's so damn hard. We're going to do more live streams. But regardless, it was interesting. Again, like, I want to see young Crocodile. I want to see all the warlords when they were young. How did they interact with Goldie Roger, if they did? Dragon, if they did? Ivankov, if they did? Jimbei, was he there? Where was Shanks? Like, I feel like there is a grand tale, a whole prequel series that I'm not privy to, and I just want to read it. Regardless, as we get the incredible squad shots like Jimbei, Crocodile, Bon Clay, Mr. 3, Buggy, Daz Bones, Mr. 1. Dude, we're all there. We're all just killing and taking the entire prison with us. Blackbeard shows up. Blackbeard and his crew show up, and Blackbeard's entrance shots with his like black hole fruit, oh my god, it's just so badass. I can't handle it. So Luffy goes into gear 2 out of anger against Blackbeard, who's kind of taunting him about Ace and everything, and Jimbei can freaking hold back gear 2 Luffy, which is just a peek again at this guy's incredible strength. I wrote this in my notes. I wrote, your HAKI is stronger than the last time I saw you, and then in caps I wrote, JAYA HAKI confirmed. Yes, I think I've been paying attention. So I think, if I'm correct, I had a sneaking suspicion that Zoro or Luffy had some sort of sixth sense moment when they said, I don't know if it was Luffy or Zoro who said, it's not that he, it's them, like he sensed a few of Blackbeard or something like that. And maybe it was Luffy, I don't know, but all I just know was that's the last time they were interacting. There was HAKI used in JAYA and Blackbeard picked up on it. Wow, I am so excited by this. Lots of interesting interactions between Blackbeard, and Luffy. They liked exactly the opposite food at the bar, but then he agreed he liked the same food once he left. As they were leaving, Nami says something to Zoro like, "Oh, you saw that guy." Luffy and Zoro were kind of like, "No, it wasn't he, it was they." And it just brought me back to when in Alabasta, Zoro had this moment of focus, almost like the mantra we saw in Skypiea, where he could kind of hear people. And I'm wondering if they sensed something else about Blackbeard, if there's sort of like a double soul thing going on with Blackbeard. I don't know, it's getting into a bit crazy theory territory here, but I just feel like he's got the D in his name. There is a relationship to be had there with Luffy and Goldie Roger and Buggy D Clown. You know how it goes. Very sweet moment in these final fights is where they're trying to defeat Maligan properly, and they figure out the wax fruit is very useful in this case against poison, and Mr. 3 makes a freaking mech suit out of wax for Luffy, and Luffy genuinely cries out of gratitude because he feels so damn cool in it, and that is just the sweetest, most Luffy thing ever. And he's winning over these villains like Buggy and Mr. 3 so much. And as they are escaping Impel Down, the shot of Jimbei swimming under the door, Buggy, Croc, and Mr. 1 all chilling on it. Buggy in his he's got like this pose going on, and he's just like got the ponytail out. The dude looks sick. These panels were incredible to look at. Incredibly glorious escape. Jimbei just like getting under the water, shooting like freaking water missiles through warships, jumping on, throwing people. Buggy just being an absolute coward. Amazing escape. Moving on from all my incoherent ramblings about how hype and how cool and how excited I am, we get an incredibly emotional moment with Mr. 2 Bon Clay. Oh, come my way, Mr. 2 Bon Clay. The absolute legend, the absolute greatest of all time friend outside of the Straw Hat Gang should be in the group. His ultimate sacrifice to get them on their way to Marineford to save Ace. Oh my god. What an incredible sacrifice he made, using his powers to imitate exactly who he needed to pass the order to open the gates for the warship to go through to give Luffy a chance to save his brother. Wow. And the way he requested not to tell Luffy until like they could cut contact, but they still had this last phone call. And just the way Luffy was crying and the way Bon Clay was crying. And as soon as he said like, you have to go and save your brother for me, you have to go do this, I was tearing up too. It was just, we don't deserve Bon Clay. Like, he's known Luffy for 2 seconds and he's done what many people wouldn't even do for their greatest friend out of just self-preservation or selfish desires. You know, it's hard to make these kind of massive sacrifices. And you know what his last words were? Freaking karate pose satisfaction. What an absolute badass. I loved this entire goodbye. I pray to the One Piece god, Oda, please keep him alive and return him again. I'm gonna miss Bon Clay. What a legend. From here we see Aces being walked up to the steps to his execution, and Buggy, freaking Buggy who wants to be king of the pirates all of a sudden with his new aim to kill Whitebeard, as well as Crocodile's aim to kill Whitebeard as well. Whitebeard seems to have rubbed a few different people wrong in this world, and they are out for blood, and I cannot wait to see all the history behind that. And at the end of this entire arc, we get a very, very small flashback of Ace speaking to Luffy about freedom, and I just got the lightest of tugs at my heartstrings, knowing that very, very soon, I feel that Oda is going to give us a backstory of these boys as children, and it's going to absolutely rip my heart to shreds. And this whole talk of freedom was very Attack on Titan, and you know I love that series, so it gave me the chills and it made me really excited just looking up at my shelf. Really, really excited for what's to come. I mean, just looking at, my god, the next volume. Come on, this looks absolutely incredible. Regardless, thank you so much for watching my thoughts on Impel Down. It's I appreciate your patience, your enthusiasm, your interaction with me in the comments, just your interest and being there as someone I can share this series with. It's really just makes everything about experiencing this story so much better. I will be back as fast as I can with the next arc, Marineford, if that's correct. And I'm sure things are about to get very hairy in this story. Overall, Impel Down was a really fun time. So fun to see all of these familiar faces again. Really exciting lore. Tidbits about the history of Jimbei, the history of Shanks. Well, not the history of Shanks. What Shanks is currently doing with Kaido. The history of Ace. And again, Luffy's family remains a massive question mark here. I hope we see more of Buggy. I hope Bon Clay comes back at some point. And yeah, look, my brain has turned to mush after talking this long alone to a camera. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. And I hope you are well. Bye.